Breaking tonight, Prime Minister Carney's apology to USA wasn't weakness, but it was strategy. Canada just strengthened ties in Asia and gained diplomatic leverage.
Breaking, Canada's surprise move just rewired global alliances. Diplomacy scored, chaos lost.
It's said everywhere. Prime Minister knows what he's doing, eh? You bet. You bet.
Breaking tonight, Mark Carney's apology to Donald Trump just became the most misunderstood diplomatic move of 2025. The world saw weakness. They were looking at genius. Tensions are erupting across North America tonight. Canada apologized for Ontario's anti-tariff advertisement. But instead of diplomatic surrender, Ottawa executed a strategic masterclass that repositioned the entire continental relationship. Everyone believed Carney's apology signaled capitulation to Washington. Political analysts expected Canada to abandon its independent Asia strategy. Critics assumed Ottawa would return to lockstep alignment with American interests. They were all utterly incorrect. You need to understand what actually happened this week, because the conventional interpretation, the surface reading, the immediate hot takes, they all missed the actual story unfolding before our eyes. Ottawa, April 2025. Standing before international media, Prime Minister Mark Carney made a statement that confused his critics. I apologized to President Trump. The advertisement was inappropriate and counterproductive to our national interests. Translation: Carney just removed the only distraction preventing substantive negotiation while simultaneously strengthening Canada's hand in Asia. And what happened next? The leader who built credibility across 3 continents reveals exactly why Canadian diplomacy is reshaping North American power dynamics, while Trump's transactional approach collapses into isolation. Listen closely. Between Carney's Asia tour and his Trump apology, something extraordinary happened in global diplomatic circles. Washington demanded deference. Ottawa offered respect but kept walking its own path. And Canada, strategic, patient Canada, became the partner every major economy started calling first. This isn't just about one apology. This is about the fundamental transformation of how middle powers navigate superpower tensions and the rise of principled pragmatism as the new currency of international influence. Here's what the world missed while fixating on Carney's apology. April 14th through 21st, 2025. Carney lands in Kuala Lumpur for the ASEAN summit. Standard diplomatic protocol would dictate careful messaging that offends neither Washington nor Beijing. Carney ignored that playbook entirely. He spoke about digital innovation corridors linking Canadian technology directly with Southeast Asian markets. He discussed green energy partnerships that bypass traditional Western intermediaries. He proposed trade frameworks that position Canada as an independent bridge between Pacific economies. The reception wasn't polite applause, it was substantive engagement. Japanese officials discussed energy cooperation timelines. South Korean ministers explored technology transfer agreements. Malaysian leaders examined infrastructure investment opportunities. Singapore's prime minister talked about financial services integration. Every conversation revealed the same pattern. Asian leaders would reference America's unpredictability under Trump, express concern about supply chain reliability, and ask if Canada could offer stable alternatives. Carney's answer was identical every time. Yes, and we'll respect your sovereignty while doing it. That single phrase, repeated across a dozen bilateral meetings, contains the entire strategic shift. Canada wasn't asking permission from Washington to engage Asia. Canada was offering Asia an alternative to choosing between American demands and Chinese influence. But here's where the genius becomes visible. April 23rd, Carney returns from Asia to discover Ontario Premier Doug Ford aired an advertisement mocking American tariff policy. The ad was blunt, provocative, and diplomatically catastrophic. It gave Trump exactly what he wanted, an excuse to walk away from negotiations while blaming Canada for disrespect. Every political instinct would demand Carney defend the ad, rally nationalist sentiment, and position himself as standing firm against American bullying. That's what his base expected. That's what opposition critics assumed he would do. Carney did the opposite. Within 48 hours, he personally called Trump and apologized. Not a qualified apology. Not a sorry you were offended deflection. A direct acknowledgement that the advertisement was inappropriate and counterproductive. The Canadian political class erupted. His opponents called it weakness. Nationalist commentators accused him of betrayal. Social media exploded with criticism about bowing to Trump's ego. They all missed what just happened. Carney removed the distraction. Trump's entire negotiating strategy relies on creating emotional chaos, then exploiting the confusion. He thrives when opponents become defensive, when they justify, when they engage with his provocations. That emotional engagement gives him leverage. By apologizing immediately, Carney eliminated the distraction before it could dominate the conversation. He took the Ontario ad off the table completely. Trump couldn't use it as a negotiating weapon because Carney already acknowledged it was inappropriate. More importantly, Carney's apology exposed the difference between their approaches. Trump measures power by volume and confrontation, whereas Carney measures it by strategic positioning and long-term credibility. Here's the evidence. Within 72 hours of Carney's apology, 3 things happened that reveal the actual impact. First, Asian markets responded. Japanese investment firms increased their Canadian portfolio allocations. South Korean technology companies accelerated partnership discussions that began during Carney's tour. Malaysian officials confirmed infrastructure negotiations would proceed on the timelines discussed in Kuala Lumpur. The message was clear. Carney's apology to Trump didn't signal weakness to Asia. It signaled maturity. It demonstrated that Canada could manage continental relationships without sacrificing its broader strategic interests. Second, European leaders took notice. German Chancellor Scholz publicly praised Carney's diplomatic sophistication. French President Macron's office issued a statement commending Canada's principled approach to alliance management. EU trade officials reached out to explore expanded cooperation frameworks. They saw what Trump's team missed. Carney's apology wasn't about Trump. It was about demonstrating to every other global partner that Canada prioritizes substance over spectacle, long-term relationships over short-term point scoring. Third, and this is crucial, Trump's isolation became more visible. By apologizing, Carney removed himself from Trump's narrative. He couldn't be cast as the unreasonable partner. He couldn't be blamed for negotiation failures. When Trump subsequently suspended trade talks, the responsibility fell entirely on Washington. International observers, the ones who actually matter for Canada's global positioning, saw a Canadian leader willing to de-escalate for practical reasons, facing an American president who chose confrontation over resolution. That contrast matters. It matters in every future negotiation. It matters to every country watching how middle powers navigate superpower relationships. It matters to investors deciding where to allocate capital in an increasingly unstable global environment. Now consider the broader pattern. For decades, Canada's foreign policy operated within narrow constraints. Stay close to Washington, don't antagonize Beijing. Maintain polite relationships with everyone while wielding influence with no one. Carney is systematically dismantling that framework. His Asia tour wasn't about seeking permission to engage the Pacific. It was about demonstrating that Canada has options, relationships, and credibility independent of American endorsement. His apology to Trump wasn't about accepting subordination. It was about removing obstacles to the actual strategic priority, diversifying Canada's economic relationships while maintaining functional continental ties. The pattern is consistent. In every move, Carney prioritizes long-term positioning over immediate gratification. He accepts short-term criticism to secure long-term advantages. He understands that global influence in 2025 doesn't come from dominance or volume. It comes from being the partner everyone wants at the table because you bring stability, credibility, and strategic vision. Here's why this matters beyond Canada. The international system is fragmenting. American reliability under Trump is questionable at best. Chinese assertiveness is forcing uncomfortable choices. European unity faces constant pressure. Traditional alliances are strained by competing interests and erratic leadership. In this environment, middle powers that can navigate complexity without choosing rigid camps become extraordinarily valuable. They become bridge builders. They become the partners that facilitate cooperation when direct relationships are too politically complicated. Carney is positioning Canada exactly in this space. The Asia tour established credibility with Pacific economies. The Trump apology demonstrated maturity to traditional allies. Together, they signal that Canada offers something increasingly rare in global politics: predictable professionalism combined with independent agency. Watch what happens next. Trump will continue his transactional approach, demanding loyalty while offering unpredictability. Beijing will continue pressing countries to choose sides. Brussels will continue managing internal divisions while projecting unity. And Canada, under Carney's leadership, will continue building relationships based on a different premise entirely: not dominance, not submission, partnership based on mutual benefit and respected sovereignty. The countries currently watching, the ones making long-term strategic decisions about trade, investment, and diplomatic alignment, they're taking notes. They're observing which leaders deliver results and which deliver chaos. They're deciding who to call when they need a reliable partner. This week proved something crucial. When faced with a choice between emotional satisfaction and strategic advantage, Carney chose strategy. When confronted with an opportunity to score political points versus securing long-term positioning, he secured positioning. That's not weakness. That's exactly the kind of leadership the current international system desperately needs but rarely gets. The world is watching Canada differently now, not because Carney apologized to Trump, but because that apology revealed the calculation, the patience, and the strategic depth behind every move he makes. While others chase headlines, Carney builds relationships. While others seek confrontation, Carney secures partnerships. While others measure power by noise, Carney measures it by who calls when they need something done. And that's why tonight, despite all the criticism, despite all the hot takes about weakness and capitulation, Mark Carney's position is stronger than it was a week ago. Subscribe to follow how this new chapter in Canadian diplomacy unfolds. Because what we're witnessing isn't just one leader's tactical decisions, it's the emergence of a new model for how middle powers navigate a fracturing world order.